So here we are again with the Center for Earth Education and Learning. And I have the pleasure again to speak today with Peter Maxwell-Slattery. Peter, welcome.
Henning, always good to do this, mate. Good to connect again.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And to remind, the focus of the center is on galactic education, to learn about us, other species and planets around us. And today we will again do 2 recordings in a row, if everything went or goes well. And the first topic is around spirituality and UFOs. And Peter, can we share the information about it briefly before? And I want to say this one here, the first one, has some complexity, and I hope we get through it. So the first question is, what is the difference between angels, extraterrestrials, masters, and spirits? As some think, it is either angels or extraterrestrials, not possibly both. And what are behind UFOs and UAPs? Peter.
So I'm going to keep this as basic as I can. So I'm only going from experience. A lot of people are going from research, or they're going from experience as well in some cases. I've had the privilege to be able to experience a lot of things on a daily basis. And there was a period about a decade and a half ago that I did throw the baby out with the bathwater for a while there, thinking it's all ETs. And then when I had beings approach me and explain that they were the Elohim, with subsequent experiences up until this day with angelic intelligences, it is something where I say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with any of this, because just when you think you've got something or you think you know it all, the rug gets pulled out. So from my experience, what I'll say is that everything is part of the one consciousness that encompasses all consciousness. The angels, there are extraterrestrials, there are masters, saints, sages, nature spirits, elementals, the list goes on. There seems to be, from my experiences and in the best-selling series that I've done with Shiji, the Shiji material, as well as in my own contacts with the Elohim, an explanation that if you get the Elohim and understand that all beings, their highest expression is an Elohim intelligence, see that as the cells of God's body mixed in with angelic intelligences. So the angels, the brief explanation is they're messengers, but my experience, Metatron and Archangel Michael are part of the immune system of God's body in sync with the Elohim. So you've got Elohim and then those 2 angelic intelligences, and there's many other angels as well. Now, there are Elohim that are always in the Elohim state. There are Elohim that are purely created beings, creating from the light blueprint, as above so below. They create and manipulate the physical reality from above to put things in a certain perspective for an experience. And there's other aspects of that, but we've done another Elohim video as well. Now, with that said, behind the phenomena, or what people perceive as this phenomena, and we're seeing UAPs now, which is more of a US government term to sort of, I think, pull people that have been that want to research this away from the older stuff and bring it to what's been purely termed under UAP. It's like you change the algorithm and the terminology, you can control that a lot easier. But if you type in UFOs, they can't do that so much. So there's a change in the terminology. And what's behind that is, again, a very layered and complex thing, because some of the orbs of light are angelic intelligences, as myself and even James Gilliland and others have been going back to the 80s and before that talking about orbs. I started talking about the blue orbs around 2011, I think it was, even though I'm a lifelong experiencer. Some of the orbs are ascended intelligences that can be ascended masters from this world and or other worlds. Some of them can actually be the way that the crafts are breaking into this physical reality from their dimensional state. So you might see a little tiny orb or a big orb. If that orb fully materialized and broke through into this frequency, the craft could even be bigger than our planet or the sun. Some of these are nature spirits. Some of them are connected to elementals and various other things as well. But I think just a perspective of not thinking it's one thing or the other, because of my mistake in doing so over a decade and a half ago, I just want that to be food for thought, that there are extraterrestrials, there are angelic intelligences, and what's behind the UFO phenomena and UAP is a lot more layered than what people think. And so you've got a situation with masters, which is a being from its pinpoint of awareness from God, source, creator, in an experience has ascended to new heights. And when they've ascended to a certain level, there is levitation, telepathy, manifest from thought abilities. Basically, we could say abilities that most can't perceive in terms of being able to create chi balls and manipulate energy and create energy and teleport by location. There's all these things that comes with it. So you've got beings in other worlds that have done this. You've got beings here that have done this. And when they're in that state, they can choose if they purely want to stay as a master being, we could say, before ascending back to an Elohim state, to where they can be of service to others in specific areas, which is what a lot of these masters do. And spirits are beings that sometimes haven't transitioned, sometimes they don't want to transition because they're either not ready to or they don't know how to. And then there are spirits in many forms that are protector beings. There's some nature spirits, or even we could say just local intelligence spirits that will occupy certain areas, whether they feel it's their job to do so as protector beings, whether it's just they see that as their home and they want to stay in that state. It's a very layered topic, but it's like with the communication side, with mind's eye, thought transfer, feeling and sensation, as well as the clear senses. These beings are all operating with that, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's fairies, whether it's nature spirits, elementals, extraterrestrials, angelic intelligences, saints, sages and masters. That is the mainframe, just like they can appear as light, just like they could appear as a UFO. And there are nuts and bolts physical crafts, there are physical extraterrestrials. But there are also extraterrestrials that are in ascended states visiting us from a higher state of consciousness. And in some cases, they will appear as an orb of light. But this is where I say, being the observer, doing the practices, and unless there's communication, for most people, they're just going to see an orb of light. And if they're coming from a Christian background, they're going to see it as an angelic intelligence. They might be seeing it from another cultural perspective and background. They see it from that perspective. And some might be coming at it from an ET perspective and go, well, it must have been an ET. And I think our lens and how we operate can also be an influence to the entity of how they want to appear to us in some cases, but you've got negative and trickster intelligences as well. So if you're coming at this, let's say, as I've found in the past, some people have got activity in their home and they're coming at it from watching ghost hunters. They're going to go, my house has got a ghost in it. You've been watching UFO hunters or another UFO show. It must be, an abduction going on. So we've got to neutralise, come to a place of observation. And in some cases, we don't know what we don't know. Like meaning with this, if you don't know, you don't know. But you've got to be open to truth and coming from the heart. And when being in truth, you've got to go to a neutral stance and not be filtered by your own distortions and your own lens. So I know that's a layered thing, that's everything else. But basically it's like not one thing or the other, it's a lot bigger than what most can perceive. Hopefully some food for thought anyway.
Well, thank you, Peter. That's a lot. And maybe I add what came to my mind just briefly. One is, of course, what if someone is seeing something, whatever that is. The second thing is, in the Bible, and I came across that, I think, through the material which James Gilliland put forward. In some versions of, or older versions of the Bible, we see pictures and there are objects depicted in the sky, which sometimes look like a UFO, right?
Yeah.
And final thing, third point, also from at least as what I can say from a Christian religion perspective, the event of the birth of Jesus, it is described that stars were moving in the skies. In other words, was it stars, or was it other objects just shining there? But of course, from the perspective of humans at that time on Earth, looked like, there were objects moving along, and they recognize, or as it is described in the Bible, there is something that is somehow extraordinary. Right, Peter? So just wanted to say that.
And no, good points. And also what a lot of people are unaware of is when you go into Merkaba, that is actually what chariot and throne is in the biblical text. It's a Merkaba. It's not an actual chariot. It's not an actual throne. It's the light body, which is two opposing tetrahedrons, which appear as a flickering orb of light. So what you have is chariot and throne throughout the biblical text, and it actually means Merkaba, light vehicle. That's what it is. They're depicting it the best they can from their frame and reference of that time. But there's also the sons of Arcturus mentioned in the Bible, the bear. You've got the Pleiades mentioned in the Bible, and you've also got Orion mentioned in the Bible. And there is a very much blending and crossing over of what ascended beings on Earth and extraterrestrial can do, as well as angelics. We are, in some way, an angel. Our original state, the Elohim state, is angelic-like. It's just the angels have their thing, that they are in those states doing what they're doing, and the Elohim go out with in-source, and where you could say that the angels are the mediators and monitors along with a variation of the Elohim. So this is where it all blends in, and they're very good points, because a lot of those experiences in the Bible, especially with Ancient Aliens and other shows, seeing the blend over, and there is extraterrestrial connections with a lot of this. So that's why I think they're great points that you brought up.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And again, we get into the second question now, and then, of course, thereafter into another one. But again, I want to say again, it's a lot of complexity here. And please, everyone, use your own discernment.
Yes.
Again, and use your own experience. And hopefully, for you and for most, it somehow ties absolutely well together. But let's get into the second question. And I thought, again, as a disclaimer, it makes sense to bring this up. And what I want to say is, you touch upon it, Peter. Also with these things, we can come, again, with this complexity to wrong conclusions. But just in general, we can with many things. And with this human experience on Earth, there are so many examples why we, even with best intentions, will here and there probably or very likely come to wrong conclusions. But the question is here specifically, the question is now, how does one heal from wrong conclusions? In particular, and this is as a solution, the healing. In particular, how can one heal with meditation, self-reflection, and love?
Well, love is the key with all this. We are now knowing from recent studies, we could say, and I would highly recommend source the movie from Joe Dispenza that just came out, that they're doing, and I'm not going to speak for him or the movie, but just a breakdown and paraphrasing with this. We are now seeing that before and after meditation and days of it, there is a chemical change within the blood. We also know the effects now from the studies with heart math of when you've got a cohesive relationship now operating between the brain and the heart, which both have neurons, and the heart gives out a bigger magnetic field than the brain. We can change our state. When you change your state, you change your energy, you change what you attract. There's a huge influences with negative influences. Past spirits that may have been addicted to drugs, may have been negative beings that don't want to transition yet, and they can stay in those states and affect people through their own thoughts, their feelings, and they can live vicariously through them. There's also owning our own stuff, and then there's a time for what I call, excuse the language, positive pissed offness, to where you've just got to move on with life. Doesn't mean you don't want to process, but you don't want to sit stagnant and sit in an energy to where you get in a deep dark hole and you can't be pulled out. You can always be pulled out, but it's up to you how long you sit in that. So my point with this is that through prayer, through clearings, through different, we could even say heart math techniques, I'll call it now, though I've been doing it before I even knew of heart math going back quite some time, as well as other teachers like James Gilliland, who I'll mention again, saying years ago that you want to connect with the heart and then sit in a loving space and then think of a good memory and then you initiate contact in that way, because the mind you seek is the mind that you connect with, and 100% with that. So it's not just, there's not one quick fix with all this. But when it comes to healing, there's going to be different tools and techniques that will work for a while that may not work. And then down the track, the techniques that didn't work might work now, and the ones that did won't work or feel effective anymore. The bottom line is a balance with exercise, with time alone, as well as with others, with joy, doing joyful things, as well as reflecting, seeing the lessons, but in that space, connecting with the heart and giving the situation that you've experienced to the heart. And even recently I've done this with some people, to where if you can connect with the heart through intention to sit in that space for a few moments and go into gratitude, basically a heart math technique, and then see and observe what it is that you can't, or that you think you can't heal. Give it, even if it's a visual of getting that event or experience and giving it to the heart, or through thought, saying to the higher self and to the event, I give you to my heart space, and let the heart deal with it. Get out of what we could say is mental gymnastics over it and give it to the heart, because the heart is going to see the bigger picture in all things. And it sounds airy-fairy, but through what I'm saying with heart math, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, others now, through many people like myself that have been going on about this for quite some time, and the science that they've got that I'm now seeing backing up what I'm saying now, we're seeing that there is now scientific data that's valid, that's reproducible, that other people can go and do it. They might be doing it different ways, but when they're doing it similar ways, they're getting results and people are getting healed. And that's what you want, is you want the results. You don't want to go through all this stuff, but there is learning, and there's got to be patience with this. And sometimes we're in cycles in the healing process that no matter what you do, you're going to have to sit in that space. And that is extremely hard, especially if it's the loss of a child or a loved one, or just all your circumstances are ripped out from underneath you overnight. It's going to be different for each person. So I know that's a bit of a action-packed thing, and I don't think anyone's got the answer, including myself, 100% on that, because if we did, we wouldn't even be speaking about this. But what we are master teachers to each other in the physical form, and that's where we're not just teachers, but we're first and foremost students. We're the students of life, but we're also teachers to others.
I want to add a number of things. First, again to highlight, we spoke about that in another recording. First, the meditation. It allows us, whether it's a guided meditation or we find our own meditation and stillness, I would say it allows us to find a different state of relaxation. And that is in any case a base for healing. Some have even reported, I met persons personally, and therefore I come to this statement, what I'm bringing now. It has often been as interesting from my perspective as a starting point to heal many things in the longer term when people started or even for whatever reason had and did a meditation. Mm-hmm. So that is about the meditation. Then about the self-reflection. The self-reflection is something which I would say is kind of do an own thinking process within yourself, reflecting on whatever experience you just recently or in the past had or you are in. And there is a thing I want to bring forward, which was, for me personally, also very useful, though at first a little, strange or, I was wondering, what is this? And I want to say, it was James Gilliland, who in an interview, as best as I recall, said basically, and he wrote it probably also in his newsletter somewhere, basically said like that, the advice is be brutally honest with yourself, or one has to be brutally honest with oneself. But what does it mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that someone is harsh or very critical with oneself. But it is to be, again, self-reflecting and in the best case, from a loving perspective, recognizing what has worked, what has maybe not worked with one or the other experience, what one did or has had or is in, or the life situation, and just giving it as best as possible an objective reflection or, again, personal kind of review of the situation. And in the best case, I would say it's about then recognizing oneself, who he or she is, and recognizing ultimately, again, the soul, or even the kind of purpose or mission. But that's probably, a lot.
No, it is.
Just in one reflection. Go.
No, I think they're really good points. Now, that's why I was saying you've got to be in truth. And when you're in love and you tap into the heart space first and then you observe in that space, there's no judgment. But if you're going to not learn and from certain things and keep repeating the same things, you're going to get the same results. So that they're the lessons we say, not mistakes, they're the lessons, but even up to the point of physical healing, like the power of people's belief, and when they drop stuff, the results can be amazing. Now, even with myself, I've written about this in recent books, but going back over a decade now, I've had people, when I'm doing meditations at skywatching events or little events that I've done, I've had people walk again without the need of a frame or a cane. Their eyesight's been restored, their hearing's been restored, their back has been restored to where they haven't got, like these things, ailments, diseases, what have you, other things they've had for years or in short term that have got extremely bad for their health. I'm not saying that I've done it. It's happened in a meditative state to where we clear the space, we tap into that higher consciousness, we absorb and we start to resonate with our true nature, and from that space there can be revelations, insight, guidance and healing that occur. And we've been kept away from that, and that's where human potentiality we are now reconnecting with. And it's not just the messages of the saints, sages and masters, but some of the extraterrestrials as well as the angelic intelligences. But that's where it comes down to self-inquiry, and you have to be brutally honest. James has had the same ramifications over there with what he's been doing for 40 years, which he's been doing how long I've been alive. And that's why I see him as a brother and a master teacher and a father type figure as well, because we are on the same page, but we're always learning. But when we talk about things like this, just out of talking about, we tend to find we've got similar results going on. And it's, you know, you'll attract the people that you're meant to attract, just like relationships, and we could say soul contracts or higher purpose and what have you. There's always this illusion that we're all separate, but there is a part to all this. This is a school of life, and we're all in this together, but it's the illusion of separation at the same time that can be very confronting and confusing for some. So truth is absolutely key with this, because if you want results and you want to change and you want to heal, you got to pull the blinders off. And sometimes it's going to be ugly, because we've all got deep and dark sides as well as beautiful bright sides. But it's the equilibrium and not seeing things as good as bad, but sitting in the space of what source is. It encompasses all that. And from all that you can create a better tomorrow. But first you have to see that darkness.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And maybe still to add, with regards to this terminology, self-reflection, I said, then you said, and it's similar, it's the same, self-inquiry, or we call it introspection. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. And then also the third I put in the question was about love, which you already touched upon in the beginning when you responded to the question. But still, I want to add, we also have the element of self-love. Again, in other words, to be very gentle with ourselves. And I would say there is so much, and it's not about the terminology, but there are just things. Like, again, we heard probably or many about love, but I'm not sure how many heard about the term self-love. Yeah. And other terms which are sometimes, I would say, they are not known to us, but because they have never been taught to us. And there again, there's much more. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight that. But then there's still more. So that was kind of what I wanted to say about the, let's say, individual thing or personal angle when it comes to how we can heal from wrong conclusions. But on a collective level, let's say, as I said, the human experience here, in a really brief summary regarding our history, is, I would say, really a long history of events, of tragedy. And it comes to probably the souls who have been here, incarnated and incarnated again, went through a lot of trauma, a lot of experience, which we should not get into. But in any case, the healing from this, and even just in this lifetime, there's probably a lot everyone can hear and there relate to. But then still, I want to read something, and I hope it comes all beautifully together. I wrote to someone a couple of months ago this kind of thing. I will just read it. And I will read it starting now. Some will never understand what has happened and how much has been forgotten. And then reality, all came here, meaning on this earth, but made different choices and still blame others for that in the worst case. Different choices, I mean, in other words, some say some were more light-oriented, others were more to the, let's say, less light-oriented. But anyway, I go on. We need to be strong individually, independently, and at the same time work together in cooperation without full connectivity. And it will work with similar intention and ultimately in alignment with Source. What I mean without full connectivity is we will not, of course, communicate with everyone every day through electronic means or in whatever sense, but the ones who have good intentions and want to be together will somehow still make it, like in a relationship, call a long-distance relationship or whatever. With the best intentions, we somehow make it. And here, with the things which happen on our planet, collectively, if we agree, or some at least, and want to cooperate, we will somehow find a way to communicate. But ultimately, when we are in alignment with Source, and I would add with Mother Earth, we can probably lift things off and up. Mm-hmm. I go on. This all here on this planet is a hard one, if we call it our mission. And we cannot please everyone at the same time, because all will have different experience and understanding. And so there will be you cannot avoid it, that there might be misunderstanding or disagreement, whatever, how to move forward with things. But I would also add, and to go on, as difficult as it sounds, not all needs action. It is energy that makes a difference, and how that energy is created. That can cause such ripple effect needed, because, in other words, here many things are convoluted, as many I said, and we had touched upon it in another interview. There are these books. You had one book, The Convoluted Universe, but here on this planet, I would say in particular, things are so convoluted. And to come to a conclusion, ultimately, to go on what I wrote, is we need self-mastery to succeed.
That is the key. That is the key. And something that I'll say to people is that just think for a moment, if every single thing that you do was seen by someone else. When you think you're alone, your actions, even your thoughts. Well, I'm saying that is because I alluded to this, the last thing we did, where before interfacing with Archangel Michael and Metatron, I had basically, we could say, a life review of all the good I'd done, all the bad I'd ever done from everyone else's perspective. Nothing's ever forgotten. Nothing's ever unseen. Your thoughts, your feelings, others' thoughts and feelings. But when you come from a place of love, there's no judgment with that, but you will experience that. And thank God it's short-lived in some cases, meaning the negative aspects when you see what you've done to everyone else from their own perspective. So when you think it's just a distant memory, it's a past thing, it will be forgotten about. No. Everything you do, what you think, what you say, is stored in the mind of Source and is accessible. But it's what we learn from it and how we grow from it that is key within that. That's the fruit, as I say, whether it's with this video, others, anybody else, what's the fruit that you can take? If you focus on that, that's soul evolution, that's soul growth. You don't want to get trapped up in anything else, but not everything is how we want it. There's imperfections in everything, but that's what makes everything perfect as is.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And again, I mean, people just, of course, recognize that. I'm not a native English speaker, for example, and here and there, the terminology or the right word might escape me. or I just might use it and later I recognize, oh, no.
No, you do good. You do good, Henning. You do good.
But in any case, I mean, so everyone, and this is just a simple example, has this or that, where it's at one moment maybe going wrong. And this is just a very, very simple example. But still here, hold on, people. If I say it like that, it is complex. And still we have another question here. And it's a longer recording, but I hope, again, it hopefully comes all well together. And again, use your discernment, use your own view. And I hope there is a lot beneficial things in here. So the question is here then still, Peter, the third question. How does all, and I mean all really, all here, all people, all beings here and elsewhere, does all, and all things, by the way, also, does all, one and we all together create heaven on earth? How about coming from the heart with peace?
Well, it is coming from the heart. But I've talked about this before. When you look at, let's say, simoscope work, which is where they're playing, let's say, 4-3-2 and there's beautiful geometry, and then you'll move up to the next frequency. In between each frequency, there's distortion. We are going through a huge distortion period that's lasted thousands of years at the moment. It's a process. We go through that in our own life with our big cycles, and we go through it with our smaller cycles. As the saying is, the wheel keeps turning. As long as you're doing the best that you can in each moment, in each decision, in every thought, in every action, you can't do more than that. So you're going through your own ascension process, which ascensions lay. There is the light body, the rainbow body, the Merkaba, but there's just purely raising our frequency. And there's also, we could say, cycles of ascension within the galaxies. But within that process, and what I'm saying is, focus on you. Enough of us do it. It's like the 100th monkey effect. Like everyone starts to start doing the things that I'm saying. You're looking after you, everyone will start looking after themselves. You be of service where you can with each moment as well. But what's happening is, the more that you're dealing and doing self-mastery for yourself, others start doing it. What happens is, there's a double effect of it's happening within, so without. So it starts happening for the collective. You can't change the world, but you can change the world from changing within, and enough of us doing it, we have that effect outside of ourselves. So it's all about self-responsibility first and being the best you. And from that, enough of us doing it, we start to transform humanity. This ascension process, it's something that everyone's going to go through. Some may go to higher states in this process, this cycle around. Each go where they're meant to, but that's how we create heaven on earth. Is every choice, every action that you want to make, how would you see that in your own heaven? How would you see that in the place of love and compassion and non-judgment, if you're looking at yourself from an external perspective as well as an internal perspective looking out? So this is where you have to be in truth. You are going to make some decisions, like you were saying before, this everyone's not going to be happy with. But that's just the process. It's a part of it. And this is what makes us grow, is the division at times, the differences. But the differences are the differences that Source has created for soul evolution and soul growth. And once you get to that perspective of there's no good, there's no bad, there's evolution, soul evolution, you can use what's negative experiences or negative things happening as drive and fuel to surpass those things for soul evolution. You use them as drive, you use them to give you the passion for soul evolution and soul growth. And again, I don't have the answers to everything, but all I can go is through what's awakened within me from the experiences with many intelligences, first and foremostly Source. And that's why I say as well, allow the divine, God, Source, Creator, whatever you want to term it, to work through you, to be a vehicle for it each and every day, and learn and grow. But when you're doing that, you're sharing that love of Source throughout every fibre of your being. but also seeing the Creator in everyone that you meet. That spark of the divine, the internal awakeness, awareness in each being is the divine. And once you can acknowledge that is in every single thing, every bug, every plant, every person, and see that first in everyone that you see, that you're speaking to God, that can also change your perspective, and you can start to merge with that mindset that can actually be a transformational thing instantaneously in some cases.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And to kind of conclude here, still I want to add 3 more things. So when it comes to the healing from wrong conclusions, yeah, it is individual.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone went through this or that, or is going through this or that. And so the solution, the remedy, the healing is in any case, is very personal, it's very individual.
Definitely.
It is different for each and everyone. If one recognizes the power and the potential of spiritual practices or techniques, and especially those where it ties into healing, I would just recommend, again, meditation just as a starting point. And it can be just as simple as sitting down without taking any meditation and just experiencing. Hopefully, if one takes here and there consciously some minutes to maybe experience if there is an effect. Then, second thing, the second recording is actually about dissension. And third thing, to come to a more known terminology again, as I said before, you can say, again, use your own discernment, but again, go with your experience, and again, to highlight something else, again, do your own research, again, individually, and come to your own conclusions on whatever subject there is out there, if you have the time, if you are interested in. But again, what we have recorded here, again, was complex, and we get into the other recording about dissension in a moment. And again, I hope there's a lot in there which is beneficial, so beneficial, hopefully, for us at this moment here on this planet, but ultimately, really for all as we go forward. Peter, anything to add?
No, just the other thing I'll say, just to add with the meditation thing you said, is just even 3 times a day, doing a clearing prayer, whatever that is for you, whether it's mine, whether it's James Gilliland's, others, make up your own. Even just doing that for 20 seconds, 2 minutes, and then just being for another couple of minutes, just sitting in that space afterwards. Doing that 3 times a day, it can be a good introduction to acknowledging thoughts, for reflection, for ideas, for inspiration, for connecting with the divine. So just follow your bliss and do whatever works for you, but you will adapt over time and learn new tools and techniques, and just go with what the universe is bringing to you. So no, that's a good thing, Henning. It's all good.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So we will be back in a moment. And thank you again.
Blessings.